honey, how was work? Good. What would you like for dinner? Oh. Mom!
Yeah. Yeah. Just a second, honey. I need to take care of something really quick. What?
Can you fix this for me?
Now listen here, you ungrateful little brat. You're gonna start showing your loving mother a little respect.
Ow!
Let's go.
Ow!
Outside! Thanks for ruining my important phone call!
Didn't do anything wrong.
Get out of there, you stupid whore! Leave me alone! What are you doing getting all made up, you stupid whore? I can't take this anymore! Get out of there, Holly! Damn it, Holly, open the door! I know you're in.
As you can see, child abuse is physical, sexual, or psychological maltreatment or neglect of a child or children, especially by a parent or other caregivers. The four main types of child maltreatment is recognized as physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect.
Child abuse and neglect is an epidemic that is on the rise and doesn't seem to be slowing down. I'm going to go over a few statistics to make you aware of just how serious this issue is becoming. Between 4 and 7 children lose their lives every day from abuse and neglect in the United States. Of those who lose their life, 80% of the deaths involve at least one parent. The number of reported cases of abuse went from 3.6 million in 2014 to 4 million in 2015. That estimates that the number of children being abused went from 6.6 million to 7.2 million in just 1 year. The thing that many don't realize is that abuse and neglect start before many are even 1 year old. About 240 of every 1,000 children experience abuse under 1. Children advocacy centers conducted a survey of 311,000 children ages 0 to 17, and of those surveyed, 5,438 reported that they had been sexually abused, and 60,897 reported experiencing physical abuse. The survey showed that 74% of all children were under 12 years old. Children most vulnerable to abuse were 3 years and younger, which made up 50% of all surveyed children. However, 24.2% of those that fall in that 58% are under 1 year old. The Children Advocacy Centers furthered their study by investigating how the abuser and the victim were connected, and the results came back that 51% of the abusers were family members, 38% was the child's parent, and 10% were known by the victim but were not related. Abuse as a child has consequences as they get older. In fact, being abused as a child gives a person a 9 times higher chance of becoming involved in criminal activity, resulting in 14% of all men and 36% of all women in prison being abused as a child. Along with criminal activity increases, abused children are also 25% more likely to experience teen pregnancy, and 30% of them will go on to abuse their own child. There are so many more effects that a child will endure throughout their lifetime after being abused, but those are just a few to make you aware of how serious this epidemic is becoming. Child abuse can cause lifelong effects. The child can grow up with anxiety, PTSD, depression, eating disorders, self-blame of the incident, self-harm, memory impairment, substance abuse, parenting difficulties of their own, and much more. Research found that child abuse contributes to the likelihood of depression, anxiety, and addictions. A study by Palmer Brown, Ray Grant, and Laughlin in 2001 with 384 childhood survivors found that the survivors of childhood abuse tend to be depressed, have low self-esteem, and have problems with family functioning. A recent study found that almost 76% of adults reporting child abuse and neglect have at least one psychiatric disorder in their lifetime, and nearly 50% have 3 or more psychiatric disorders. Childhood abuse survivors demonstrate poor mental health, unhappiness, and poor physical health. Childhood abuse survivors of sexual abuse discover medical disease, relationship problems, isolation, and behavioral health effects. The impact of child abuse does not end when the abuse stops. The lifelong effects can interfere with day-to-day functioning. However, it is possible to live a full, constructive life and even thrive and enjoy a feeling of wholeness and satisfaction in life and work, as well as genuine love and trust in relationships. Understand the difference between your current abuse and prior behavior is the first step towards your recovery. It is important to understand that these effects are the result of children and teens adapting to the abuse from their parents. Some of the effects are used as coping skills, like the abuse of drugs and alcohol and self-harm, help the child cope with what happened to them and helps them feel better about what happened to them.
7.5 years old. Was my stepdad. I don't remember how old he was. At the beginning, it was like not. It was like friendly, you know. That's what I thought. And then things started escalating. Started with touching, and then, I mean, you don't know what's going on, and then you start learning like to get scared. My mom would take off like to the stores with the neighbor, and they would leave me there, and it started like more
Sexually,
yeah, more touching of him. I turned 8 years old. My mom married him. I turned 8 years old. And by this time I wasn't, there was penetration. So by this time I knew it was wrong. Well, I knew I was wrong. And I started telling him, like, I would cry, and that's when he would start, oh no, it's not bad. He would tell me it's not bad. This is what you're supposed to do with your stepdad, and things like escalated more and more, and the penetration started becoming like I had to do like oral sex, and I would cry and cry, and when I started like threatening, like, oh, if you tell your mom, I could kill her, I'll kill you. So yeah, this happened up to like I was 10 years old. And at that age, it was just so scary.
How do you feel today from how you felt in the past? Like, does it affect you in any way? Do you think?
Well, it affects you as you're like, in your mind, you don't know what to think, as you grow up. I mean, I left home so early. You don't know what you're doing, if it's right or wrong. You really don't want that person to touch you. You feel
Insecure.
Insecure. Sorry.
It's okay.
You don't like yourself. You don't like your body. And, you don't want people around.
What is your idea on child abuse?
Child abuse is a pretty negative thing. I don't think any child or any person alone deserves to go through what they go through.
So, if you were seeing a child being abused, would you do something about it?
I definitely would, whether it's verbally or physically. Like I said, no child deserves that, and I would definitely intervene.
Have you ever experienced someone being abused?
I have not. I don't want to say I'm fortunate, but I have not. And then,
Do you think the child can be affected in the longer run as an adult if they suffer from child abuse?
I definitely think so. I'm a psych major, so I've done a lot of research on the brain and how stuff affects people, and it is proven that definitely they can get messed up psychologically.
Did you ever get beaten as a child? And if you did you ever think you were being abused?
I have not gotten beaten. I've gotten, the typical spankings, but I was never, belt whipped or anything like that. So I wouldn't say I was abused or anything like that.
What do you think us as people can prevent? How do you think us as people can prevent child abuse?
I think to prevent child abuse, it really just comes down to the parents and, the people in their lives. It doesn't necessarily just have to be from a parent. It can be from anyone.